my mother and sister died shortly between each other, and it was after my mom died, and I asked my brother-in-law if I could have a sculpture she'd made. It was of a turtle carrying the first man out of the ocean, and it was kind of big, and I've always really liked it, and my sister got it first, and I asked my brother-in-law for it, and he had to think a minute because he couldn't remember where it was or even what it was. So I described to him it was by the door in the guest bedroom, and then he remembered. He thought a minute, and then he said, "Oh no, Sally, you can't have that. Polly liked it." And I understood. I wanted to understand, and I didn't feel really good about it, and I never mentioned it again. But after I read Say Her Name by Francisco Goldman, I thought of him again, and I understood better. The funny thing about reading this book was that I read all the way through it, and it wasn't until I started to look at some reviews that I realized that it was a biographical fiction. This is actually the true story of Francisco Goldman's loss of his wife, Aura Estrada. And originally I thought, what a great plot mechanism that he was so much older than she was. But in fact, it was true. He was almost twice her age when they married. She was in her early 20s, and he was in his mid to late 40s. They lived together 2 years, and then they were married 2 years. So at the end of that 2-year marriage, his lovely, young, soon-to-be great writer wife died after going on her head while riding waves on a holiday in Mexico. And to make matters worse, Mr. Goldman was accused by Aura's mother of being responsible for her murder. He knew it was her grief that was making her do that, but Aura's mother was pretty persistent, and it made his grieving process take a different avenue. This book is the story, it's fictionalized, and he said he fictionalized parts of it so that he could tell his story better. And it's the story of his grief, and the story of his loss, and the story in details of their life and love together. Mr. Goldman said it took him 2 days to write the last scene, which is the detailed account of her death and his response. And after he'd written it, he wasn't able to write anything again, even though he was on a grant until the grant was up. It took everything out of him. And as I've looked through a couple of reviews, people have mentioned time and again the one scene that really made me understand my brother-in-law's attachment to everything that Polly loved. And Francisco Goldman describes the same thing in his apartment, of all the objects that his wife had and how he's living amongst them and how he made an altar of her wedding dress. And he describes it as trying to hold every single memory of her in the air, like he's juggling balls. And to drop one means to be dropping a piece of his life, himself, with her. So, after I read this book, even though I didn't even know it was true, I found myself, freer in my skin to be with Nelson here in Texas, where we are, way out in the country, and to just not the things that always kind of come up and can spoil a good time, memories and nitpicking thoughts. they just weren't there. They haven't been for a while, and I'm so happy about that. So this is definitely a book that I hope, even though I'm not one to go back and read books again, that I would read again and again.